In my family there are two kids, sister and I, and my parents. Christmas was coming up and I've been wanting a car for about a year now because I've recently gotten my green peas, Australian thing that you can get when you're older than 18. My parents have mentioned in the past the idea of me paying for half and it'll cover the other half of a car under total 10k Australian dollar. I can afford this as I've saved most of my money from the two jobs I've kept since I was 14, so no biggie. I've also been relying on my mum to drive me to work for the last 4 years, so it was a smart move on their end rather than driving me the 30 mins each way every shift I've got. My sister has just turned 17, which is when you can get your red peas in Australia. She's never had a job and has no money saved whatsoever. I love her a lot, but she's made some questionable decisions toward her future lately, but that's a separate story. My parents haven't seemed to care as much as they probably should have about these things and are acting like everything's normal and all good. With Christmas coming up at the time and my birthday in early January, I thought this might be the time my parents get me that car I've wanted for the last year, as they've mentioned this idea for the last couple months. I'm obviously excited the week leading up to Christmas, wondering what type of car they've bought or what they're looking at. I wake up Christmas Day around 10 a.m. to the sound of my younger sister crying, but in a happy way. I'm excited for her as she's obviously gotten something she's wanted. I walk downstairs and no one's at the Christmas tree, but a present with my name is sitting there. I figure I'll come back to it after I find my parents. Check the front door and it's wide open. Walk out to the driveway to see a brand new blue Hyundai i30 sitting in the driveway with a big ribbon on the front, around 25k. My sister is at the side of it crying with my parents' arms around her. I ask who it's for and my parents tell me her. I probably could have handled this better, but I stormed back into the house, closed my door and stayed in there for the rest of the day. Didn't go with my family to see everyone else for Christmas because of how annoyed I was. My parents asked me why I did that when they got home, so I asked them why they bought her a car before me, who's older, willing to pay half, had a job, goes to school, and has a stable plan for the future. They don't have an answer to that one, so they just stay quiet, and after a couple of minutes of awkward silence they walk out. By this point I've forgotten about the present they left under the tree downstairs, so I walk down to open it, and it's a new phone case from eBay, something I had no use for. I can't get over what they've done. Am I the idiot? Some people are going to comment based on the fact that a new car isn't a gift a teenager should expect. But that's not the issue here. The issue is that your parents showed considerable favoritism toward your sister, you don't know why, and they won't tell you why. That's naturally very upsetting. Your reaction is totally understandable. So understandable that the fact that they asked you why you were upset seems a bit strange. Not the idiot. Not the idiot. Your parents get the max idiot rating. You get maybe 1 out of 5, very little, but not because you hurt them. Rather because you ruined your own Christmas by reacting that way. Don't get me wrong, I would be absolutely livid if this happened to me. Like, what the hell, parents? That's a seriously bad move from every point of view. Clear favoritism, awful parenting. If you were planning on paying a half, it's also a horrible financial decision for them. You said your sister made questionable decisions for her future, and they support that rather your stable future, as you said, and that's another horrible parenting mistake. What kind of message does this send to your sister? Oh, OP will have to work their butt off their entire life, but mommy and daddy will make sure I'm happy. This makes me so freaking angry. Not the idiot. Screw your parents. It doesn't even make sense. The only explanation is they're favoring your sister over you. And that's screwed up. Save up. Move out. I wish there was some way to get even or show them how terrible they are. But at this point, you're better off letting it go and moving on to your more successful future. Screw them. Update. I've had a long and deep chat with my parents. I've told them exactly how I feel and what reminded them about what they promised. They sounded apologetic, and I think maybe they're starting to understand my point of view a bit more. They said they didn't want to ruin anything but to wait until my birthday and see what happens. However, I feel like this wasn't their intention all along, and they only said that to get me back on their side. I'll wait and see how it all turns out, but only time can tell. Thanks for all the comments and upvotes. I'm trying my best to reply to as many as possible, but it's gonna take some time. I hope everyone has a great holidays, and I'll update when I know the final outcome. Final update. So, my birthday was recently. My parents were seeming nicer than usual the entire week beforehand, which might have been because they had time off work or they had a surprise. The outcome was somewhere in the middle of what I was expecting though. On my birthday, they told me that they were sorry for buying my sister a car for Christmas when I deserved one and really needed it more than her, so they told me that they'd given me $10K to be able to afford something I'd really like and enjoy taking care of, and also to drive to and from work, to school or university, and everything else. The outcome couldn't have really been much better than this one, especially since they originally said they'd help with $5K toward the car I want, so I'm pretty happy with it, not gonna complain anymore about the situation. I just hope they stop the favoritism and obvious extra love and support they give to my sister all the time. Thanks for all the support on the original post, and thanks for all the messages with advice on the situation. My 16 mom passed away recently. My brother, 14, and dad are so devastated by this tragic loss and we are struggling. I've basically found myself handling all chores and work around the house. My brother is too traumatized, he hasn't been talking since the funeral, and my dad hasn't been lifting a finger and do a single thing. He started making requests from cleaning the messy living room, he sleeps on the couch, to picking up dirty laundry to doing dishes, cooking or ordering food, walking the dogs, vacuuming, doing repairs, mowing the lawn, washing the car since my brother stopped doing it. I'm too exhausted oftentimes. Mom used to do the chores and I used to help, but I have school and after school commitments and my dad keeps negatively commenting on how I get things done and compare me to mom, like how much time I take to make breakfast, etc. Yesterday he woke me up at 6 a.m. even though he told me to skip school and wanted me to make breakfast. I scrambled eggs and prepared other dishes, then went to wake my brother up. I set the table and once dad sit down he looks at the scrambled eggs and goes, "What is this? This is not the right way to make scrambled eggs. Your mother used to make perfect scrambled eggs. Did you not learn anything from her at all? How are we supposed to survive if you can't even properly make scrambled eggs?" He looks at my brother and says, "We're doomed." I snap and loudly tell him I'm not his replacement wife to expect me to do this and that for him. He looks at me stunned and my brother rushes out immediately. Dad starts telling me how cruel and insensitive what I just said and how out of line I was. I reply that I was too tired to make the perfect scrambled eggs my mom used to make and that maybe, if he as a parent had tried to learn, we wouldn't be suffering right now. He gets up, throws the towel and walks out. My aunt came to visit and when I told her she went off saying I should have never said that to my grieving dad and that I should be ashamed of myself for talking to him like that. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. There's this thing called parentification. Your tale is a textbook example. Your dad is an insensitive idiot and your family dynamics cannot be brushed aside with a "but they're grieving" excuse. He lost his wife, yeah. Your brother lost his mom, yeah. But did you suddenly not lose your mom as well? Or does that not count because you emerged into the world with 2 X chromosomes? Reset your boundaries with your family and do not allow them to overstep again, or this will be the rest of your natural life. Your dad, brother, and aunt are ridiculous. All of you are grieving, but it is not up to you to take over and make the family run by doing all the work. Your father needs to step up and parent. Talk to a counselor at school. Your father needs to be prevented from interfering in your schooling and other commitments so you can go on to live your life for yourself, not take care of them. I honestly can't believe that your aunt took his side. I'm so sorry you're having to deal with this. So sorry for the loss of your mother. Not the idiot. It seems like in their eyes you are not even related to your mother, as if you were not grieving too. It's absurd. Honestly, I think they need to know you are not their maid and you have feelings too. It seems like just because you are a girl you have to deal with this extra weight that should be shared between the 3 of you. Something similar happened to a friend. Her mother died and then suddenly she was responsible for all her brothers and for her father. She was only 16 too and she needed an adult in her life. She was so tired and depressed she ran away for months. My wife has severe trauma around pregnancy and childbirth. By the time she got pregnant, we had managed to work through things and manage triggers, but the one unavoidable thing that she is terrified of is having to get prenatal care. It took therapy and the reality that CPS would end up involved for her to agree to medical care on a reasonable schedule. Agreeing in theory, however, is a lot different than agreeing in practice. The OBGYN in practice that she agreed to, because she's familiar with them, has two standard policies that interfere with this. Pregnancy appointments are only scheduled in the mornings, since always, and only the patient is allowed in the building, since 2020. I understand that they're trying to show sensitivity to all their patients, but with our work schedules and the policy of only having morning appointments, it's incredibly easy for her to oversleep and then just not reschedule appointments. She's also expressed in therapy that she just can't do an ultrasound alone and would rather fight CPS later on that than get it over with. Between the therapist and the doctor's office, we've gotten an exception for her appointments to be in the afternoon so that she has to be awake and someone, me, can take her, and she is now allowed a support person, me, for ultrasound appointments. This way, she's actually going and getting appropriate medical care. She had her 20-week scan today, at 26 weeks. In the waiting room, a woman a few seats down was shooting us dirty looks and glaring every time she looked in our direction. My wife went in, and the woman went off on me asking why I thought my wife and I were just so special that we got to just break all the rules for our special spawn. I reacted and asked her to think about someone other than herself and to stop assuming that every single pregnancy was just some simple thing where everyone is 100% happy and exceptions only happen for convenience. I almost went into the whole history and it attracted more attention than I ever wanted, but thankfully I was able to go in the room before that happened. I'm now hearing about it from the office that she and some other patients are complaining about a pregnant woman during what's supposed to be a safe space and a man in the waiting room. They now want to rethink our arrangement and my wife is now upset with me. I think that woman should have minded her own business and I was only defending my wife. Am I the idiot? Everyone's the idiot here. I'm sorry, that woman was rude, but you were also rude. I am so sorry for what your wife is going through, but as a woman who struggled with infertility for years, got pregnant in 2020, and lost my pregnancy in 2021 without my husband being able to step into the clinic once, you're making a lot of assumptions about what other folks are going through. I would have given anything for my husband to be with me when I was going through that dark time, but we weren't able to because keeping others safe from COVID by minimizing exposure was the top priority. You're the idiot. You and your wife seem to think that her trauma overrides the trauma and safety of other women. And you think it gives you the right to violate pandemic restrictions. What the woman said was harsh, but it was true. You made such a fuss, and the two of you actively endangered your unborn child to the point that a clinic made an exception. You and your wife violated a space that was supposed to be safe for women going through fertility treatments because you think her trauma gives you the right. Everyone's the idiot here. The other lady shouldn't have went off on you, but you shouldn't have responded in kind. You are there by special permission from the office in a usually safe space for women with their own trauma. Your behavior probably caused at least as many of the complaints as her behavior. I'm not surprised a doctor's office won't give you special appointments anymore. Your wife isn't their only patient they need to create a safe environment for. So we're three best friends in our early 30s. We've been together since high school. I'm gonna use fake names for the post. It's Mary and Helen. Mary is child-free by choice. And so am I. I don't intend on ever having kids, since I don't think I'd be capable of being a good parent, and I don't want to have the responsibility of another tiny human. Helen, on the other hand, was always a I want to have a family kind of person. We always used to tease her for that, but in an unoffensive way, and even if she felt offended she'd tell us and we'd stop. She's the odd one out, but we still adore her. To be honest, I used to have a very weird mindset that women who have kids are not truly happy and they just pretend to be. I overcame that mindset and I now accept that while some women are pressured by society to become moms because it's what's expected of them, they're indeed miserable for the most part, but other women are genuinely happy to be moms and it's bringing joy in their lives. Helen gave birth to a baby girl 4 months ago. Once we found out about her pregnancy, both Mary and I were extremely happy to be this baby's aunts. Once Helen gave birth, Mary and I were always there to support her and comfort her. She has a husband, and he's a gorgeous man, but we as friends also thought we had to do our part. At first everything was going smoothly. Then Mary downloaded TikTok and she ended up on the child-free side of it, which is normal, but then it started affecting her whole personality to the point that now, in the span of 3 months, she started despising children and has shown bitterness to moms. She always texts me privately out of our trio group chat chatting crap about Helen and the fact she's a mom and how she's gonna change now and we'll probably grow apart. I shut down these convos pretty quick and tell her not to base her personality on what social media tells her to. She kept being weird about moms and kids and she started making bitter comments towards Helen too. Helen would always ask if everything's okay and Mary wouldn't elaborate. Helen definitely picked on Mary's change of behavior. Yesterday Helen would visit my house with a baby and Mary would come too. At some point the kids started crying because duh, it's a baby, it cries. And Mary started making comments like that little crap won't shut up, Helen, please come alone next time without the crying creature. I told her to cut it off, seeing Helen was getting upset and uncomfortable. She wouldn't stop and I told her that if she can't shut her mouth she should leave my house. She said she's not obligated to accept Helen's kid just because she's her friend. I said I agree, but the least she could do is respect her. She left and called me the idiot for siding with Helen and the baby instead of her. Well, I'm also child-free. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Yes, I can attest as a mom, relationships with our friends, especially our child-free ones, do change, sometimes, just as they do in any life circumstances like a change in careers, marriage, death, health conditions. Children don't determine the structure of the friendship as much as the adult participants' willingness to adapt and be gracious. The last thing Helen needed was to be picked on and shamed for her baby crying. Mary sounds pretty toxic and is pushing herself out of the group. Also, child-free is not a side to be on, any more than it would make sense of choosing to be pro-running or anti-running. Does your friend understand her own existence is predicated upon her mother's willingness to carry her to term and, presumably, raise her? I get not wanting to be a mother. I even get her deciding not to have friends with kids in order to limit her own exposure to them. What makes her a giant idiot is claiming to be friends with somebody while actively seeking to cause her pain just to make a point that doesn't matter to anyone else in the room. Not the idiot. Mary sounds insufferable, I'd hate to be around her. I can't imagine how hurt Helen must be to hear that crap coming from someone who is supposed to be a close friend. Good for you for standing up for Helen and stepping up to support her. I hope you end up forging a good relationship with your niece. Children deserve love and safety, not the harshness that Mary was spewing. I'm also child-free and do not want children. Honestly, I don't really like very many, but my almost 2-year-old niece is my favorite person in the world and absolutely adore that kid.